Paul, thank you for being here today and for accepting my invitation to talk on my podcast. You are a very inspiring person to me because you have so many different interests in the health department, whether it's mental health, physical health, well-being in general. You are a voice that resonates with many. There is a shortage of healthcare practitioners. AI is a very attractive option. AI can probably be taught to help the healthcare provider. I personally don't think that AI could be a replacement, but I think that AI can be an ally. It can help nurses, the medical doctors, all the professions that fall within the category of healthcare, potentially do a better job covering more people, helping more people, and bringing new solutions, creative solutions to the table.
Yeah. I mean, I like AI even today, and it still feels like it's in its infancy with the large language models still just a couple years old. But even today, I find they do a pretty good job at diagnosis. And the reason is that a physician with 20 years experience may have read, 10,000 cases, but the large language models have read millions of cases. They just have more data available. I would like to always have a doctor and a care team who uses AI as part of their care for me. But if I'm going in for surgery, I would love to have a human nurse hold my hand and say, you're going to be okay. There's something about the human-human connection and care that I think is really important. I remember once reading a study in The Lancet about this. It's hard to believe they actually conducted this in the UK, but they did a study with orthopedic surgeons with people with knee injuries. And in 50% of the cases, they had the physician put his hand on the knee of the patient while they were interviewing them. And in the cases where the physician put his or her hand on the knee, the person healed faster, which is insane. But there's something about the mind-body, and there's something about the laying of hands, literally that phrase, that if your doctor touches you and tells you they're caring for you, and even if it's Reiki where they're not literally touching you, but if you believe your care provider is helping you and you connect to them, it somehow helps you heal faster. So I believe in AI. I want AI in my doctor's office, but I want to have a human doctor and I want to have a human nurse.
It makes sense that touch and human words still remain what we connect the most with.
Yes.
That is incredibly important to have the human being that reassures you, that comforts you in that moment. And that's where AI becomes an interesting tool because it can also free up time for the healthcare professional to talk more to their patients, to assist them better. Where are we standing in terms of equipping the medical professionals with AI tools?
I'm an investor in a company called Open Evidence. So Open Evidence, I believe, is used by 25% of physicians today in the U.S. as a way to give them, it's like a knowledge base of everything that's been done in their field of medicine and a way to use language models to study, what the doctor's trying to learn. There are many tools like that on the market today. There are new ones coming out every week. I'm on a number of AI newsletters, and it seems like every week I hear about 2 or 3 new medical software companies coming out that are using AI specific for different diagnoses. Like there's a whole field of imaging and radiology, which is changing with AI. And it's really by diagnosis that there's different tools being created. And it's a very exciting time, I think. I look forward to even like drug discoveries being aided by AI right now. The whole field about like how to manage clinical trials is changing a little bit as well. And it's just exciting. I look forward to what health is going to be like as I get older. So I'm 62 years old right now, and I think about as I get into my 70s and my 80s, I hope healthcare for older people works a lot better even than it does today.
If you live in a place where you have access to those innovations, you're more likely to benefit from them. But looking at the world or even at the country in its whole scale, how do we go to the remote areas? How do we train the people to live and work in those remote areas? How do we make it appealing to bring those technologies and the know-how to the areas that ultimately need them the most because they are further out from the big cities?
I'm on the board of Partners in Health, and in Haiti, it's called Sommet de la Santé, is the organization in Haiti. And we have the new hospital that was built with Paul Farmer, the University Hospital in Mirbalais. And I know that some of the staff at the hospital are using AI today in Haiti, but the patients don't have it yet because largely most of the population we serve in Haiti are subsistence farmers, and they don't have computers. Most of them do not have electricity in their homes, so they are not using AI today. They do mostly have phones, and as AI tools being built for mobile phones, and as more smartphones get used in developing countries and around the world, people will have access in that way, which is exciting.
That's also an area where so much development can happen, where your startups can help and your colleagues can help do that. So you're optimistic about the future and seeing growing into old age with better tools.
Yeah, I think patients will be more informed by having access on their mobile phones, information about their healthcare. I think one of the other things I like that I think we learned in Haiti, actually, that could be useful even in the U.S., is Partners in Health has a model called accompagnateur, where there's a health accompaniment, that there's someone who is a paid health worker in Haiti, and they go home to home, and they help the patient manage their health care, whether it's helping them take their medications, making sure they get to their appointments. And I almost think a model like that needs to be used more in the U.S. I know there are a few communities in the U.S. that are exploring that, but I really think about a care team because there are not enough MDs right now, and there's not enough specialists in the U.S. So you have to think about the role of everyone on the care team, including these community health workers, and the role of the family members in helping with their health. So I think that having tools in your mobile phone would be really helpful. Having the right care team would be really helpful. And then also making sure that your care team is benefiting from the latest technology.
The costs are dropping as those technologies perform better and at higher volume. But we do have funding considerations in equipping healthcare, in getting those tools to Haiti and spreading them around the world. How can we go about addressing a situation where we identify the needs and the cost of filling those needs?
Yeah, it really differs country to country. I think most countries outside of the U.S. have nationalized health care where they just use the tax on income and on businesses to help fund health care for the country. And each country has to make sure that they're deploying those money efficiently in using both new technologies, but also making sure that everything is evidence-based, because some of the new technologies are not yet proven. And I think there's a risk that some communities might race a little bit too far into the future and use technologies that don't actually work. So I think the challenge of the Minister of Health in different countries is to look at which clinical trials have been successful, what were the quality of the clinical trials, and make sure that everything is evidence-based. And that includes old technologies, which are still very useful today, as well as some of the new technologies, such as what's happening with AI and wearables and other consumer technology.
That leads me to thinking that trust plays a big role. Trust in your healthcare provider, but also the maker of those technologies, that you can use them reliably. At a time where there's so much misinformation circulating, how can we build the safeguards to use those technologies wisely and have them vetted by the appropriate channels so that we actually provide the best quality to the user?
Well, I think if you look at the curriculum in medical schools today here at Harvard or in nursing schools. I know I do a program with UMass Boston, which has a pretty big nursing school, and we're teaching nurses how to use AI to be better nurses. And if someone is falling behind in coursework, how to catch them up so that everyone, by the time they graduate, has all the information they need. If you think about trust, I think trust starts with the care team. Do you trust your nurse? And does your nurse have the latest information? Do you trust your physician's assistant? Do you trust your physician? And making sure that our education system is equipping all of the care team with information about well-tested technologies and processes, as well as some of the newer technologies. So it might be that you yourself as a patient don't yet have the education to know how to use the new technology, but your care team hopefully will have that education and hopefully can be someone that you can trust to tell you which technologies to use.
That is in a scenario where there's contact between the patients and the care team. But a lot of people will source already their knowledge and the information online from mainstream media, from apps where they will just browse for the information.
Which can be a little scary. Yeah, my doctor always tells me, please don't Google your symptoms because you're gonna terrify yourself with all the things that it could be. I am someone that I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac. I'm an engineer, so I do use all the tools to sort of research if something's going on with me. It could be as simple as a cold. I had a really bad cold a few weeks ago, and it lasted much longer than a cold usually lasts for me. And I'm online, using ChatGPT and Gemini and sort of researching different medicines. But I did check with my doctor, and she told me, what I should be doing to take care of the cold.
Right, and so you checked in with your doctor, and you could have your doctor in a toolbox that walks you through the process with all the questions that lead you to identifying what most likely is happening to you. And that would be a great pathway to take to deal essentially with the shortage of medical professionals and provide the tools in hand for anyone to use. How do we counter the bad algorithms out there? The algorithm that you would hit by making your search that will just feed your hypochondria with information that scares you even more. How can we beat that with the right information, the process that is evidence-based and leads to a more likely solution for the patient who is doing that research?
Physicians need to know their patients are checking ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and other AI tools. That's happening today whether the physician wants it or they don't want it. It is happening. And so I think the physician and the care team in general needs to guide the patient into here's how to use these tools, because if the physician simply says, don't look up anything online, that's not going to work because patients are curious. They want to know, and there's a lot of information available. But I think ultimately the care team has to guide them into here's where some of the online tools can be useful, here's where they're not useful. For example, there's the problem well documented where AI tools will sometimes just make stuff up, and they will sound really confident that this is what's happening to you, when in fact they just don't have enough data to really tell you exactly what's happening to you as opposed to what's happened to other people who have some similar symptoms as you. So a good physician and care team, I think, can guide people. Here's where the AI tools are useful and here's where they're not useful, and then using them in combination with the care team. I think about one area that I'm doing some work in right now with Mass General Hospital is mental health and AI. And in mental health, we're finding today that it's something like 50% of people in therapy are also using ChatGPT as a therapist, which is kind of shocking. But I think that's the future, that people will use language models to help understand similar situations that other people have been in and what they should do. But they also should have a human therapist, particularly if things get really bad. I would never want to trust someone. If someone has like really severe clinical depression or they're in a really bad bipolar episode, I would not want to leave them alone with a laptop and have me trust the laptop to tell them what to do. I would want them to talk to a human therapist or a human physician.
So in a way, the ideal scenario would be for the medical body to equip themselves with the right tools and offer those to the patients in combination with their help. To beat misinformation, to avoid patients going down the lane where they are seeking randomly online and not finding the real evidence or what they should be hitting. So that sounds like building a network of healthcare professionals that are well versed in what exists in their department
Yeah.
in terms of AI, and then building that trust with the patients, distributing it to the patients, and maintaining that relationship.
That's right.
And spreading that out.
Yeah, I think it starts there. And what's interesting is if you look at the history of new technology, particularly computer technology, what you find is younger people adopt it at a more rapid pace than people who might have 20 or 30 years experience. And this is happening in the medical industry. There are students graduating Harvard Medical School right now who are very adept at using AI tools, knowing where they work and where they don't work. And they get a job as a resident, and they're working under a more senior physician. And the young resident might actually be able to use these tools in a way that the more senior doctor just doesn't have the experience with. So I think we're in a funny situation right now where the younger doctors and younger nurses need to learn from those with 20 years experience or 30 years experience. But the more experienced doctors and nurses and healthcare providers need to also learn from the young people graduating school right now, because it's the younger people that are really pushing ahead the development of some of these new tools.
Building the accurate tools and training and distributing the most accurate tools is key, given that you could spread misinformation about literally any aspect of health.
But keep in mind, some doctors today spread misinformation not using AI, but just due to they will see you as a patient, you come in with certain symptoms. It might trigger a thought that they saw a patient lots of months with the same symptoms, and they might diagnose you the same as a patient a month ago, when in fact your background might be very different than that patient a month ago. So, AI is trying to generalize across millions of records. I like looking across a large body, as much body as possible, particularly evidence-based research. A physician which is only looking across, dozens or hundreds of cases might not be able to accurately diagnose me as someone who has everything in their head. I look at the New York Times as a column, it might be called Diagnosis. They present a very complicated medical case, and they put it out there to the readers to read and to see if you can figure out as a reader what's going on. And a lot of doctors read this column, but also lay people read it. And because I'm very curious about medicine, so I read this column a lot. And recently what I've been doing is I'll just copy paste the first 2 or 3 paragraphs into ChatGPT, and I'll see, can it do an analysis? In some cases, these are patients who've had really bad symptoms for 10 years or 20 years or more. And I'm finding recently the language model is doing a pretty good job of diagnosing even these rare diseases. So it definitely should be part of the toolkit the physician and the care team should be using.
That makes sense. You touched on our own imperfections. We don't make the perfect assessment either. Medical doctors might not. And do you think we need then to keep an open mind, combine the strengths together, and put the different solutions together and look at all of that as one piece to give us a solution, an answer, but not rely just one tool?
Yeah, I absolutely. The other thing is you want a care team that talks to each other. If you're working in a medical office where there's, let's say, a small medical office, like there's 5 physicians who work there, and there might be a senior physician who opened the office. You want to make sure the physicians are talking to each other about the cases, because it might be that a new patient presents themselves to a doctor on this team, and she hasn't seen these set of symptoms before, but maybe one of her 5 colleagues has. So it's not just checking with AI, it's also just human physicians and human nurses and other caretakers checking with other people that have different and maybe more experience. I just want my care team to be as informed as possible, meaning use other people on the care team with more experience, but also use AI as one of your tools.
You're not by any means old, but if you look back, what legacy do you think you have created for your achievements so far? What is something that you are particularly proud of?
I think it was Banksy, who's known for saying we die twice, the day we draw our last breath, and then the last day someone says your name. And so I do think about that sometimes. When will it be the last time says my name? I mean, hopefully my grandkids, but will my great-grandkids know me? Will their kids know me? Will other people know me? Like, what will be known for? I am most known for these days for creating Kayak, because we've had hundreds of million people use that website. I'm very grateful for the opportunity for the team that created that. But I don't want that as my legacy. I want my legacy, like my tombstone, I want them to say, he aspired to be kind. And aspired is really important. I'm not just kind because I grew up in a kind family. I'm kind because I realize it's important to be kind, and I work at it. As far as legacy, I just want to be known as someone who's kind, I think. I recently, one of my nonprofits, I started something called Embrace Boston. The first thing we did is we built a memorial to Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, who met in Boston. Their love story started here in our city. And so we created this incredible memorial in the Boston Common to them. And one day we had a ceremony. And after the ceremony, I was at a bar in Boston, and I had a pin on my collar, which is the logo of the Embrace Memorial. And the bartender saw it, and he said, "Oh my God, the Embrace is so meaningful to my family. My mother actually met Dr. King, and we couldn't believe that Boston, a city with complicated history with race, would do something this bold to recognize perhaps the most important person in social justice in this country." And I said, "Well, I'm so happy that this is meaningful to your family." I said, "I'm actually the founder of Embrace, and you can have my pin." And when I gave him my pin, he started crying. And I thought, no one ever cried when I told them I invented Kayak.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Sometimes making a direct impact in an individual's life will stick maybe more with you than all the numbers that you generated elsewhere. So maybe it's in the small things.
Yeah, there's a saying in the Jewish tradition that to save one life is to save the world. And I think we should all think like that I can think of transformative moments for me as a child, things that happened. My uncle, Jack, who taught me to play chess, and I became a very serious chess player, used to play in tournaments as a child. My aunt, Rosalie, taught me how to paint, and then I became a painter as a child. I think about adults who changed the course of my life, and what it means is for us as adults, we also now have the opportunity to change the lives of children. And what are we doing to sort of save that life or change that life or direct that life one at a time? And it's an exciting opportunity. So I hope more adults with different lived experiences become mentors to young people and help them find their journey.
It's certainly a great investment of our time and knowledge to build the next generation and convey our successes but also our failures. I think part of dealing with the mental health issues is also when you resonate with people who admit that perfection is not real, that will be candid enough to share all their pains with you, and they are relatable. Yeah. And I think that's the most important, to talk about, the good, the bad, and the ugly at all times, because that's really what defines life.